Hey guys, this is Cody at Pangearreptile. So today we are going to be teaching you guys how to ship your own crested geckos. This is a very common question we get asked from our customers. I've helped out some of you previously, with phone calls and stuff like that, but we figured it was time to do a video and properly explain how to ship your crested gecko. You can get all the supplies on our website at pangearreptile.com. We have all the shipping boxes you need. We have all the heat packs you need, ice packs, cryo packs, all size deli cups that you need. We don't have paper for you, but newspaper works great. And then we have your shipping boxes that also come with all the inserts, as you can see right here. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is temperatures. Basically, you want to get your day planned out. We recommend shipping Monday through Wednesday. That way, if you have any issues during transit or anything happens, the person that you sent the gecko to, they can get in contact with you and you can fix the solution before the weekend hits, which will make things a little bit more complicated on your side. So basically, if you are going to ship on a Monday, you want to check the weather for the evening forecast and through the night in your area. The second thing you want to do is you want to check the temperature of the zip code to the person you're sending to. The best time to check the temperatures for the person that you're sending to will be typically around 10:30 a.m. and it could range all the way up to 4:30 p.m. So once you have your temperatures figured out, it just depends on what you want to use during that gradient. We don't recommend shipping your gecko when the low is under 30 degrees. If it's under 30 degrees at any time, I would not recommend shipping your gecko. Same thing goes for the heat. If it surpasses anything over 80 degrees, I wouldn't recommend doing it unless you've had some experience and you can play around with different ways to kind of get that temperature gradient within your box. So basically the categories is you have 30 degrees all the way up to about 50 degrees. In that temperature gradient, you usually want to package your gecko with a heat pack. In most cases, we do have the 72 plus hour, the 60 plus hour, and the 40 hour available on our website. Unfortunately, I don't really think that you're going to be using the first two at all, considering it's going to be a little too much heat. Most of the time you're going to ship your gecko, it's going to be overnight. So my recommendations with crested geckos would be the 40 hour right here. This would be your best bet. So once you pack your gecko with that, it should be set to go during that gradient. Now, if you're going anywhere from 50 degrees all the way to about 78 degrees, I personally recommend using a cryo pack. There's a little bit of a confusion with cryo packs. A lot of people tend to think that they're ice packs, and they are not ice packs. These packs will basically maintain a room temperature gradient inside of a small container, such as the box that you're shipping your gecko in. It will go through a phase change at 71 degrees, and it'll either harden or it'll become a liquid. All this really does is just basically maintain that proper room temperature, and it's perfect for that mid-range gradient. If you're going anything over 78 degrees, 78 to 85, we would recommend using an ice pack. Depending on the size of your box, we have two sizes available on our website. You have your 8-ounce ice pack and you have your 4-ounce ice pack. In most cases, with a smaller box, you're going to use the 4-ounce, and if you're using a much larger box, you're probably going to want to use an 8-ounce. The ice packs, what's easy about these is you basically just soak them in a cup of water and allow the gel inside to basically become a gel. Once it becomes a gel and it's nice and plump, you can throw it in the freezer for a couple of hours until it hardens and it's ready to go. So one thing, if you're sending to somebody that is over 80 degrees, we highly recommend going to a FedEx ship center for your customer to pick up the gecko from. The easiest way to do this is go to FedEx, just Google FedEx locator and just follow that first link that pops up. There you'll find a section where it says, basically you can put in the address of the customer and it'll find a location near, but you always want to find the location that provides dangerous goods and live animal shipping. It is very important, otherwise most places that don't accept those services, they will decline your gecko and it will be very hard to find and it will be very hard to receive. So you always want to make sure that you're really on top of that and find the correct ship station or ship center. And usually if you explain to your customer, hey, this is a little tough, we want to send it here, they're usually 85 to 90% A-okay with that. Most customers even have their own FedEx hub that they recommend that they use quite often. So you could always reach out to your customers and ask them if they have a hub that they have in mind, and that's the best one to send it to. So a prime example of when the best time is to send to a ship center is, let's say here in Michigan, we have a low of 42 degrees overnight. Let's say you're sending it to Texas, which you're gonna have like an 82 when it's gonna be delivered. So the best thing to do for that situation is typically you always want to contact the customer, have them sent to a FedEx ship center. That way you can prepare for the coldness that you have here, but you can also prepare for the heat there without having anything crazy happen. So since it's going to be 46, what I would recommend doing is I would use your cryo pack, phase 22 pack, and I would pack that in your Gecko, and then you can send it, because when it's in transit, it's always going to be in a vehicle or it's always going to be inside a facility, so you don't have to worry about, you know, keeping your Gecko cooler for the hotter temperatures. And once it arrives at the hub, normally they're going to be kept inside, so you don't have to worry about anything crazy spiking with it being on a hot delivery truck on a hot day in transit. Now that we have the temperatures figured out with the gradients and everything that you're going to want to use during that time, the next step is determining the size of cup that you're going to want to use for your Gecko. If you're shipping out a juvenile Gecko, what we normally send our Geckos in is a 6-ounce deli cup. This comes pre-punched with holes, so you have proper ventilation so your Gecko can breathe. And if you get a little bit higher in the juvenile stage, our next step would be the 8-ounce. This is not a big cup and it's not a small cup. It's perfect for anything that is usually about 10 to 15 grams. Then the next step would be your 12-ounce cup. Your 12-ounce cup, I usually use these for any adult that's tailless, or even just like a sub-adult. That way, you know, they basically have enough room to move around. I typically don't like to put geckos that are larger geckos with tails in a 12-ounce. However, it's possible, it's not really recommended. When the gecko is in transit, it's very easy to get stressed out. And if it has a tail, sometimes in worst scenarios, it could cause a little bit of a kink tail. And we just want to completely avoid that whole situation possible. So we always want to move up to the largest cup that we send, which is the 16-ounce cup. This is a 6 3/4 inch in diameter, so you got a little bit more room, and it's just about the same size as the 12-inch depth. Basically, we put anything that's about 30 grams and up that has a full tail in one of these cups, and we'll send them in a larger box. If you're shipping your gecko with a smaller cup, obviously, you could always get away with a 7x7x6 box. This is what we sell here, and this is basically majority of the geckos go in this box when I ship them out. The next size is if you're sending out a couple geckos, you could always jump up to a 12x9x6, but it's not a very likely box that I use personally. The most box that I use, other than the 7x7x6 box, is always an 11x11. This box can perfectly fit either 4 12-inch cups or 12-ounce cups. It could fit 8 of the 6 to 8-ounce cups, and it could fit 1 16-ounce cup perfectly. So basically what you want to do is, since you have your cup determined and you have the size of your gecko, it just depends from there how much paper towel you use. If you're using a 6-ounce deli cup, I typically only use 1 sheet. That's if you're using paper towel, you can make your own sheets, like the half sheets. If I'm using an 8-ounce deli cup, I typically use 2. I crunch them up pretty good, throw them in there, and then I usually find a nice little pocket to put the gecko in so it feels secure during transit. With the 12-ounce cup, I usually use 2 pieces as well, just because the geckos are a little bit larger, so you don't need to pack that cup so much with paper. And then with the 32-ounce, 16-ounce, you will basically I usually use about 3 to 4 pieces of paper towel, and that provides enough comfort and it provides enough hiding spots so the gecko can kind of snug up during transit. Another thing to think about is I always send our crested geckos with dry paper towel. I wouldn't advise doing it with misted paper towel, as it could get really dirty really quickly, and the receiver that's getting your gecko probably won't be super stoked about getting a gecko in a wet cup. All right, so now that you guys have an understanding of your temperature gradients, you know how to identify the size cup of gecko you need, let's skip to the point and let's do a demonstration on how to pack your gecko. The supplies that you're going to need is obviously your box to package the gecko in, your correct deli container for your gecko, your correct packing material to make sure that you can keep that gradient in. You're going to want to have some good packing paper. I use newsprint. A great substitution is newspaper. You can get it at the gas stations, any convenience store possible. And of course, you're going to need your paper towel. So let's get to the chase. All right, so basically we have a gecko that's going to be going out today. It is going to be shipping to New York. Our low temps are in the 60s overnight. And by the time that their gecko arrives, it's actually going to be in the 60s. So this is a perfect example of how to use a cryo pack. So let's get right to it. Once you got the box together, you can put in the inserts. The box will come with a top and a bottom insert, and it'll also come with the side inserts. Obviously, you always want to put the bottom in first. From there, you will align the inserts on the sides. All right, so now that you have the box ready, let's pack your gecko. All right, so now you have your box set up. Like I said, we're gonna be using a cryo pack. This gecko is a juvenile, so I put it in a 6-ounce deli cup. So basically what I like to do is I will put in the cryo pack first. So that will just go right in there, and I'll pack it all the way to the side. Then I will put the gecko right on top, and I'll take some paper and I'll stuff it around the gecko to kind of get it nice and packed in there, so that way the deli cup doesn't move around often, and it'll just keep your gecko a little bit more secure. So as you can see, I packed paper on the gecko. The gecko is directly on top of the cryo pack, and I won't do it, but if you shook this around, the gecko's not going to move. So then from there, depending on who you are, we like to put food inside of our boxes with the gecko. Every purchase that you get will receive a free 2-ounce bag. So normally we would put food in there. We don't have food as a demonstration because this is just a demonstration. So now that we have some extra space, what I like to do is I will get a handful of paper and I will crunch it up in a ball. And I'll get 4 pieces that are like that, and I'll basically tuck them in on top of the gecko. And this, you'll kind of get an idea of how I do it. So you do one there, and I'll obviously put 2 more balls of paper right there to pack it in. So now the gecko is secure, it's packed in there, it's right on top of the cryo pack, so that cryo pack will be able to regulate that temperature. If it was an ice pack, I wouldn't recommend putting the gecko directly on top of it, as that could be very dangerous. And same thing goes for a heat pack. But because if it's a cryo pack, you don't have to worry about it getting too hot, you don't have to worry about it getting too cold, and it's going to be perfect for your gecko to maintain that room temperature gradient. So now that you have your gecko packed in, you'll obviously put in your top insert. From there, you can put in your care sheet for the gecko from your company. You can put in your business card. You can put in anything. I like to put it on top, so it's the first thing that the people will see as soon as they open up the box. From there, you'll obviously seal your gecko in place. So the gecko is packed. There's one step that you need to do that is very, very important when it comes to shipping any live animal within the United States. Basically, there is a Lacey Act rule. The boxes that we carry already have it pretty much self-explanatory for you. So in this circumstance, you will literally just basically check the reptile spot on there. And then the most important part is putting the species and the quantity of geckos. There's only 1 crested gecko in here, so the way I would do this is I would do a 1-, and you want to do the scientific name. Scientific name for crested gecko is Coriolophus ciliatus. Some people say Rhacodactylus, but it's 2020, and we just call it Coriolophus ciliatus now. So there I will put on the Coriolophus ciliatus. And in parentheses, I always write the common name of the gecko as well. So since there's one, this is exactly how it should look. If you have a box that does not have this basically preset out for you, the best way to do it is literally you could write directly on the box, and you would write Lacy Act. You would put 1 Corylophus ciliatus, and then again in parentheses you always do the common name. So that's another demonstration of what you can do if you don't have a stamp or a box that has the pre-ink label for you. And that's how you pack your gecko. That's the easiest way to do it when you're dealing with a room temperature gradient. Obviously there is, different things that you could do to try to get a better gradient, and I can explain that later. All right, so now that I showed you guys how to pack a smaller gecko into basically now temps, I'm gonna do a simulation where I'm sending the gecko to somebody and it is 38 degrees expected arrival time. Our low is gonna be 36 degrees. So I'm gonna end up using a heat pack, and I'm gonna show you guys how I would package it with a heat pack. So I got a larger gecko in a 32-ounce cup, and I'm gonna put it directly in the center of the 11 by 11 by 6 box. I'm gonna do the same thing that I've done with the smaller gecko, and I'm gonna pack paper around the gecko up to the rim of the cup to keep it stable. As you can see, all the sides are packed in with paper, and if I were to shake this box, the gecko is not gonna move at all. So now that I have this, I'm going to pack the rest with paper, and I'm gonna insert the heat pack. So now the gecko is covered with paper. The entire box is snug. I don't pack too heavily with paper as it could put a lot of pressure on the gecko and could cause harm. So I just lightly pack it to enough where it's snug. Now that I'm using a heat pack, you never want to put the heat pack directly on top of the gecko. So as you can tell, I put in paper on top, and I'm going to put the heat pack directly on top of the paper to keep that gradient. Usually shake it up to get everything, rock and rolling. Get that heat activated. And we're gonna set that directly on top. And then from there, it's safe to say you can put the top on the gecko, fold the edges, tape it up. And then now the gecko's boxed, we always wanna do the Lacy Act. So if you got a box like we got that has the pre-existing label, it's pretty easy to do. So since there's one gecko, Corylophus ciliatus, not Rhacodactylus ciliatus. Just kidding, it's still right, but it's 2020. And then again, I always do the common name, which in this aspect, it is Crested Gecko, and it should look like that. All right, so here is another simulation. Obviously, it is not summer right now. It's November in Michigan. So I'm going to do another simulation of going to a hot climate. So let's say it's in the middle of summer in Michigan. Our temperatures are about 82 degrees, drops down to about 78, 79. And then I am sending this to, I gotta be realistic here, I'm sending it to Texas. It's gonna be 85 degrees. Still a little too hot, but since it's going to be very similar to the temperature here, you could use a cold pack. If it's a very big difference, let's say it's going to be extra hot in Michigan, extra hot there, you can still have your gecko sent to a FedEx ship hub, and you could still send it with a cold pack since both temperatures are very similar. So let's get to that. Again, we have the 4 ounce and the 8 ounce. I was very unprepared since it is November. I don't use cold packs right now. This is not ready. Basically, like I said, you just soak it in water until it's nice and plump, throw it in the freezer. But since I was unprepared, we're gonna jump into a pre-existing cold pack that we have from the store. So this is how I would pack your gecko. Basically, you're gonna wanna put the cold pack in first. Just like that. Secondly, you're gonna pack paper on top of the cold pack so that way the gecko does not directly touch the cold pack. And this is where you'll want to pack in the paper pretty tightly because you want to get like a good solid 1/2 inch layer to 1 inch layer of paper between that and the cold pack, and you pack it in tightly so that way the moisture doesn't absorb too much within the paper. So now that I got it packed in nicely and flat, you can set the gecko directly on top of that paper. Here we're using an 8-ounce cup because this gecko is roughly around 12 grams, so it's too big to fit in a 6-ounce cup. So how I would do that is put the gecko directly in the center, and like we've done in previous sections, we're gonna pack around the rim of the cup. So now that the paper is in place, you can tell that the gecko is snug, and if I were to shake it, it's gonna be stationary. So now that you got that set up, let's pack paper on top so the gecko is complete. Since the level to the top of the cup to the basically rim of the box is a little bit shorter than what you would use with a cryo pack, you don't have to use the 4-ball method like I like to use. You can kind of just spread it out and just fill it in. Again, you want to pack it nicely where it's snug but not too tight, and it should look like that. Then you're ready to go. Now it's complete. All right, guys, so that sums everything up. I've mentioned what kind of cups to use with each age group of your gecko. I've talked about the temperature gradients and what to use to be able to manipulate the box environment for the gecko for a safe shipment. Another way to do this, if you're completely uncomfortable yet, the best way to do it is if you have a family, a close friend, anybody that's nearby, you can do like a little trial experiment and you can send the gecko to a friend that's nearby, so that way you know, you can kind of test out some things to figure out what works best for you. When I first started shipping reptiles, I was very nervous, very on edge all the time, and I was extremely worried. And after a little bit of time and after some effort, you know, I started figuring out my own methods, what works best for me. And it's really not as bad as you think. So hopefully after this video, it will help you guys answer any questions you may have, and I hope that you guys can become some reptile shipping experts. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe, follow all of our social media accounts. We'd love to see more, and if you have any other questions, feel free to contact us at customer service@pangearreptile.com. Thanks for watching, guys.